Hello, everybody. Welcome as we're all joining the Zoom room. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Ariana. I work at Royal Roads University in the recruitment department. We are thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm thrilled to be co-hosting with Dr. Kathy Bishop, who is our program head. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, we're all here for values-based leadership, building thriving organizations today. We have some wonderful panelists with us as well. So Melina Scholefield, Charlene Lafreniere, and Rowena Browne. We will get to know them in just a moment. But as we progress here, our slides. Of course, before any webinar or presentation at Royal Roads University, we do like to acknowledge our traditional lands that the campus rests upon. So we are on the traditional lands of the Wasepsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. We are very, very grateful to be here where we live, work, and play. And the future of non-Indigenous and Indigenous staff, faculty, and students come together. So thank you. We're very grateful that you are here with us today. And with that, without further delay, I will go ahead and pass it off to Dr. Kathy Bishop to speak a bit more about our agenda today. Kathy?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ariana. And well, here is our agenda. As you can see, it's going to begin with a welcome and an overview, and then we're going to focus right in on values-based leadership and education for helping leaders and organizations thrive. We'll also be offering some specific program around our RRU graduate certificate in values-based leadership and the Masters of Arts with a specialization in executive leadership with a program overview at the end, but we will be wrapping up and closing by 1 p.m. PST time. So, of course, just want to say that there will be time for questions, but feel free throughout to ask any questions in the chat area. Ariana and Carla will be monitoring that area. So thank you both for doing this. As always, though, if something gets missed, please do take the lead to make it known through repeating it in the chat, because we definitely want to answer your questions. But I would just like to start with a heartfelt welcome to you all. We definitely are living in extraordinary times, and without a doubt, we are in a world that requires transformational, values-based leadership on higher leadership level qualities that can truly transform organizations in the face of adversity, uncertainty, and all the emergence that we're currently in. So as Anna said, I'm the program head for our graduate certificate in values-based leadership, but I'm also here with some amazing learning leaders, and I'm going to just flip this as Ariana has identified. We have Charlene, who is the Chief Indigenous Officer of Northern Health Region. We have Melina, who is the Executive Director of the Metro Vancouver Zero Emissions Innovation Center, and we have Rowena Browne, the Chief Development Officer of the Mustard Seed out in Alberta. Of course, some of you might be familiar with the Mustard Seed here in Victoria, BC, a different yet important service organization. But in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to each of our speakers today to share some of their experiences as values-based leaders developing their organizations. And first, though, I'd just like to give a bit of a background, the why and what of values-based leadership and education. I really love that Samuel Johnson, way back in the day, wrote about the inefficacy of genius without learning. And really, that's about the false notion that genius does not take study, exposure to work of others, or craftsmanship. We know it does. And learning and applied leadership is really critical in our world today to be a trusted organizational leader who has practical wisdom. And what we know is that often employees are promoted to mid-level, to senior level leadership positions because they're effective in their technical or professional roles. But when they take on new leadership roles, they may be unprepared for what awaits them on how to navigate that human side of organizational life. Or if they are seasoned leaders, they know the value of lifelong learning and leading and seek out opportunities to keep growing and developing. And it is clear that different capabilities are needed for organizational-wide responsibilities that do involve thinking and working deeply with purpose, vision, mission, and living our values in our lives and our work. And so values are those things that are important to us. Within an organization, sometimes values have gotten a bad rap because they are more than just pretty words that are posted on an office wall. That values-based leadership is about diving deeper into understanding a leadership framework and the practices based on values and purpose. So ultimately, when the going gets tough, and we know that in leadership, at times it does, there's our values that we can turn to. And values are reflected in specific actions and behaviors. And when we can understand what values are and how they show up in our actions, they can really guide our decision-making process as leaders, and they really help us stay rooted on our path. And so this is really critical as we seek to intentionally and explicitly lead for the greater good of our people, our organizations, and our communities. So that's a bit of an overview for me. At this point, though, I'd like to turn it over to Charlene to begin. Charlene.
All right. Well, thank you, Kathy, for the passover of the mic, and Ariana, thank you for introducing us, and Kathy for the invitation. It's a real honor to be here and to be invited. We have 1 month, I should say I have 1 month left in this program, which is really exciting. But there's definitely, you know, I have to get this assignment done, but there's also a sadness attached to like this, you know, when you complete something, there's a celebration, but then there's also, you know, you're moving on. So I'm in that feeling right now, but just a little bit about who I am. I live up in northern Manitoba in a small city called Thompson. I'm a northern Métis woman and very, very proud northerner. I've been here my whole life, left for school for little things. So grateful that Royal Roads University is accessible to, you know, I get teased about living in the bush or a straight line up, up the highway from Winnipeg. So that's one of my favorite things about this program is being accessible, and then you have access to students and your cohort, your advisors and faculty right across Canada. So many different perspectives and ways of thinking, knowing, and learning that you get to engage with in this program. But so yeah, I'm up here in Thompson. I've been the Chief Indigenous Health Officer. I guess a little bit of a blessing. I started about 6 or 7 months before the pandemic. And then, so I got a nice kind of orientation into the system. And then it was, you know, a very crisis style of environment in a position that required strategic leadership throughout. And so being able to study and learn about values-based leadership while going through that was extremely valuable. Before I went to health, I have my consistency in my leadership and in my roles have been to advocate and to influence, you know, the quality of life for Northern and Indigenous people. And I've worked in a variety of sectors. So I've worked for, you know, First Nation governments in the area of justice. I worked for the University College of the North in terms of partnerships, and it was called institutional advancement was the title, but it really was about relationships and partnerships in northern Manitoba here. And the population in my region, just for context, because it's Manitoba, is 74% Indigenous people live in the region that I live in. And if you can picture Manitoba, we cover about 70% of the land mass as well. So low population across a large land mass. And I'm also in where that area is in Treaty 5 territory mainly. We also have communities that are part of Treaty 6 and Treaty 10. And so, Ariane, I appreciate the land acknowledgement. And just for where I'm calling in from, I'm in the traditional territory of the Nishnawasuk Cree Nation and the homeland of the Red River Métis. So I've worked across sectors. I also did a stint, I should say, because this is where I learned about values-based leadership in a really practical sense, although I didn't call it that, was doing 2 terms on city council. So 8 years in local politics will, for me, my survival was being rooted to my principles and always being open and flexible, but not off my values and my principles. And so what this program also did for me is give me language for things that felt really inherent and natural and a way that I liked and felt comfortable leading. And so finding what theories that fits in, how it actually looks and feels in different environments outside of my experience. And so I think I got lost on my train of thought there for a second, but I just, the value of being able to build in the material that you're learning, for me has been really easy, I guess is the way to say it. I feel like whether it's a mindset or whether it's a tool, there's been something I've been able to incorporate, language, like I was just saying, being able to incorporate that into my style of leadership, whether it's to build up a team or whether it's to try and get another group of leaders on board, whatever the task may be. One of my roles in the health system, both for the North but across the province, is to disrupt racism in the healthcare system. And I'm the executive sponsor for that work in Manitoba. And again, when you're in these complex, hard conversations, being able to put to practice your values-based leadership is, to me, again, I would say one of those things that can keep you healthy, keep you standing, keep you moving in conversations in a good way. And one of the questions like to ponder to help prepare for today was like, why is values-based leadership important to your organization? And one of the first thoughts that came to my mind is because that's how organizational culture starts, is what are our values. And they become something that you can create dialogue around. So how are we actioning these? Because as someone who has to and wants to engage with Indigenous partners and Indigenous communities, and they see our values, they say, oh, they're great values. How are you actioning them? Tell us. What can you point to? And then so that helps us dig deeper into ourselves. How are we actioning those values when that's what we put out to our communities and we put out to those people that we serve and our staff? And so there's a dialogue that can emerge out of the values that we're guided by. And one of the shifts I felt like I've learned in this program is, like I said, I felt like a principled leader, felt like a values-based leader. And I am. And sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. This is where you'd want to be pre-recorded, hit pause, and then restart your thought. But I think I'm starting to just go right into imagining things and seeing things and reflecting on my experience in the workplace, but also with the cohort. I think I just want to speak to some really practical pieces here if you're considering the program right now. I think the quality of students that you get to work with is amazing. That's been one of my highlights, something I didn't quite expect. The faculty are extremely supportive. It's always about, well, what's best for you? How can you learn? What can you, it's always about building us up, pushing us, stretching us, but also encouraging wellness and balance. And those can be hard lines to walk, but I feel like we're constantly reminded over these 2 years about our own wellness in our own leadership, filling our own cup up to be able to support others. And so that message is in for us as students as well. I would say this though, you need to be prepared to commit. And I would say something I didn't quite internalize before I started was I kind of thought I could go on my schedule. So that's one thing to be prepared about. You're going to be in a lot of team environments. You're going to have to work out your team. Like you can have a lot of independent time that you could do at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, but you also have to be realistic in knowing you're going to have some teamwork. And that is going to likely not be at 5 a.m. or whatever your favorite time to do your schoolwork is. So there is some compromise required on your schedule, and really have your family's support to sacrifice you every now and again, because it takes an everyday commitment to the school. I would say, an hour or two every day of your reading, and then, a weekend day to keep things moving. And when you have an assignment or a paper due, it's the whole weekend. So you have to really think of those things. And I'm a mom of a 7-year-old. I'm an executive in a 0.4 and a 0.6, both executive roles. And I'm doing this program, and I'm keeping my head above water. It's all possible, but you have to really plan for the balance. And you have to plan for that wellness, which is why they probably remind us all the time throughout the program to do that. So I think maybe I'll leave it there. But it's if you're thinking about it, I would really encourage you to take this step and just know it's a real commitment. It's not going to come easy, but it'll be worth it. Then I'll leave it there. Sorry, I should be clear, and this will probably come up later. There's a certificate program, which I believe is just the 6-month program, which can then build into the master's executive stream, which is the 2-year program. So that's the one I'm speaking to, but the 6-month is a part of the graduate certificate, is a part of this journey, which I would say like ditto for the 6-month to the 2-year. It's a similar experience. I'm good there, Kathy.
Marvelous, Charlene. And I see Melina's ready to jump in. So I'm going to thank you, Charlene. We'll go through everyone and then we'll sort of circle back. But yeah, thank you so much, Melina.
Awesome. I love, Charlene, that you said you're a values-based leader. So I'm just going to say, for all the people, I did not know I was a values-based leader before I did this course. The reason that I got interested in it is so my background, I'm a professional engineer, and I've worked many years in the public sector. I've also had my own consulting company and worked as a licensed residential builder for several years. And now I'm actually executive in a not-for-profit organization working on climate change and environmental kinds of things. So what got me interested in this program was, after many years of working and leading sustainability work in Vancouver, I had a chance, sort of reporting to our CEO, to really see how things function at the top. And what I noticed, being fairly young in my career, I got promoted sort of up to that level fairly early. It was a very different world at the top, dealing with the executive level teams. And then, who I was trying to affect all the change with were sort of like senior management level folks. And then, because I was a bit on the younger side, my peer group, actually, a lot of them weren't even in management type roles yet. So I remember feeling like it was very interesting, sort of seeing at these different levels of the hierarchy how different aspirations were being achieved in an organization. And in particular, what I was very interested in was our organizational culture. So we had some quite sort of dramatic shifts at a couple of points with changes in leadership. And I had the opportunity to really sort of see and experience firsthand how the difference in leadership at the top influenced culture in the organization. So that got me really interested in this idea. I was working in sustainability, which was all about trying to bring about change. So I definitely had a role that I was trying to help us, work together with others towards something different than we are today. And that, of course, can be really exciting and also really challenging work. And so trying to like understand, you know, how best to do that, my own sort of competencies, how to work well with others. And like I said, I came from a technical background, and it really became abundantly clear to me fairly early on in my role that all of the things were actually really difficult about my job and trying to lead the portfolio I was leading were not about the technical, like none of it. Like all of those technical issues could be overcome. Like, yes, there were real technical issues, but could we overcome them? Yes. It was all about how do we build alignment. It was understanding that people have different values and beliefs, and that drives so many of their actions. And so anyway, I took a little a shift after I had my third kid. So I've got 3 kids. So I'm also like busy on the home front as well as the work and the school front. And I thought, you know what, before I go back after my maternity leave, before I go back to work, I actually want to go and dig a lot deeper and understand more around leadership, because I've, you know, had tons of opportunity for professional development around sustainability topics, but it was more about like the people and the leadership part. And then, like I said, having seen this transition in organizational culture under different leaders, this program at Royal Roads really stood out to me because it was focused on values and culture. And like I said, when I started it, I honestly did not really understand what values-based leadership was. And I remember one of our early exercises, we had to like share with the class our 3 top values. And I was like, what? I don't even know what my values are, or like, what does this mean even? So I'm just going to say that if you're a beginner, that's a-okay. But what I realized through the process is actually I 100% am a values-based leader. I just didn't understand how to articulate it in that way. And I also wasn't very explicit in expressing it. So that's something that I've been learning through the program. So for me, I would say the values-based leadership certificate was an amazing like a journey of learning and growth personally as a leader. And then through that process, it kind of came around to looking more broadly at like, okay, well, how am I leading others? And that's where it started to connect in more with understanding, you know, the role of culture, you know, what is it that I'm doing and how I actually need to be really intentional about living the values, expressing the values that matter. And it's made a huge difference. So I started the program back in 2011. I was actually the original cohort. And like I said, I had 3 little kids. I actually had a nursing baby. I was still waking up at night to nurse my little baby while I was doing it. So just to say that I did the 6-month program, and it was awesome. I loved it, totally fulfilling. I didn't feel at the time I could continue on with the master's. It was too much for me at the time. So anyway, carried on with my career, and it made a huge difference. Like just my approach, my confidence. As Charlene mentioned, like, you know, I'd never, as an engineer, no one had ever helped me understand like the technical basis or the literature or the practices that exist out there around like leadership in practice. And so I really gained so much of that, and it really helped me. So when I took on new challenges that were quite complex and transformative, I felt very confident. Even though I didn't know the path forward, I felt very confident that I could lead them and work with my team. And I did. And it was really wonderful. So that's what brought me back to the second part of my academic career. 10 years later, I realized after doing quite a substantial initiative around change and transformation within the public sector that I really needed to understand change management better. And so that was, again, the beauty of this sort of foundation of the values-based leadership. And then I was able to add on a second graduate certificate in change management, which then actually sort of melded nicely into the executive leadership program. So to actually get my master's. So for me, it was like a perfect transition of learning at different stages in my career. And of course, you know, by the time I had started the change management graduate certificate, I actually was in a new executive role. And so trying to understand what that looks like to be starting a new organization from scratch and leading. And it was just totally a beautiful fit with my learning and growth in my new role, sort of as I took on those responsibilities. So how how has this served our organization? I'll just say that one of the things I love the most about Royal Roads is everything has been so relevant to what I've needed to help me serve and be a leader in an organization. Like there was even one course, I think, where the content and the little assignments that we had just coincided. It just happened to coincide with a complex issue that my board and I were dealing with. And actually, I ended up using my course activities, like my assignments, were actually what I actually brought to the board. And so at the end of the course, when I actually gave my final presentation, the appendix was actually my board briefing that I did on the topic. And so helping kind of work through the process of how was I going to navigate this complex issue, and how are we going to try to tackle it as an organization and assess the different considerations. It just beautifully melded into like the coursework. So I found everything very, very practical and relevant. And most recently, like with the master's part of the program, you get to do an engaged leadership project, which I really appreciate, because it's not just about going and learning knowledge on a topic. It's actually engaging and working with other people to figure out how together we can explore some new opportunities. So for the case of my organization, I basically said, okay, well, what is a huge need that we have as an organization? Well, we're trying to work with Indigenous peoples in the area to advance some climate action. We're trying to work with public sector leaders to advance climate action. And so it was a perfect opportunity for me to apply like what I've been learning and the theory and the practice with other people to then come up with a really interesting exploration and recommendations, which I'm actually hoping to take to my board next week. So I'm really excited about that. And it's very, very practical. Just in terms of like the workload management, I really appreciate that things are like mostly asynchronistic. It did allow me to work around my busy schedule. I've got like 3 kids, like I said, so I was able to stick handle moving things around. I'm not gonna lie, I needed extra support on the home front during this period. So if you have like a partner or whatever, like they do need to be mentally prepared that you're not like going to be as accessible or available, or your kids, you know, you got to like try to balance that. Or sometimes you're like, Mom, how come you're in your office all the time, you know? So there are those little pieces you have to adapt to, but things that, you know, I just tried to bring in some extra support. I was like, I just don't need to do as much housework. I'm going to get some help during this time just to help me be able to cope with the workload. But like overall, really valuable. On the team front, like Charlene mentioned, that there is a lot of teamwork, and that's a real strength. So not only do you see and learn and build relationships with these other folks, but you do learn through this program how to quickly connect with a new group and have to learn how to be an effective team in relatively short order, because you don't actually have a lot of time to mess around. And this is actually a really important skill to have like in life and in your career. And you get lots of practice at it, and you see what's really good. And like Charlene mentioned, the wonderful classmates, everybody's got this incredible knowledge base or talent or experience that they're bringing, and you definitely sort of benefit from learning from all of them. And you feel like, you know, Charlene and Row and I are in a little pod group, but we clicked pretty early on, and we have many other many other people in your class you feel like you could call up and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, what do you think? Or like when I was a new not-for-profit leader, I have never worked in the not-for-profit, there were many other not-for-profit leaders in the program, and it was great. And Row was one of them, you know, where I said, hey, how have you handled this? Or when you guys were just getting started, what were the kinds of ways that you were dealing with it? So even just building out your sort of personal network of like friends and professional colleagues that are there to like help you each other be successful, I feel like there's a real spirit of collegiality and supportiveness. So yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll just say you don't need to know it all before you go in. That would be my biggest thing. I felt like a naked baby that knew nothing about this. I was like, what are they talking about? But boy, did I learn. So the personal growth was great. And then when I did we had to do this like 360 thing after. We had to take it out to your organization, and they asked 20 people. And the thing that I was like, oh my God, people see what I feel. People see in me what I hope And so that was super validating. And like I said, I didn't realize it before. I wasn't conscious. But then I became more conscious and more intentional. And then as I've tried to lead and nurture others and mentor others, I've tried to help sort of bring some of these ideas and supportive of helping them become like more deeply aware and understanding and how they can play a role in leading for impact.
Thank you so much, Melina. And I see Rowena, you're ready to jump in. So right to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy, and to the group there at Royal Roads. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to share the journey for me. Working in a very complex organization, we work with the homeless population. So my role as a chief development officer and my background has always been executive director, fundraising, resource development, grant writing. So I work with various personalities, various complex issues. And I would say, I also work in a very fairly matrix and very large organization. So decisions are made across the chains in many different cities. We're in 5 cities. We have over 700 staff. And for my role in my department, we resource about $25.5 million for the organization annually. So I, like Charlene, entered the organization 4 months before the pandemic hit. And it was crisis, and crisis management. And one of the things that was such an incredible blessing for me coming into the values-based leadership program, by the way, it was wonderful because my CEO advocated for me to enter this program and supported me in both a certificate in values-based leadership as well as my master's journey. But it was evident that, the organization was going through a major organizational transformation layered with the complexity of a world pandemic going on. And so decisions were being made quickly, fast, and you had to be an agile leader coming into the pandemic. And one of the things that was such a blessing for me walking into this program was when you're working in such a highly matrix and decisions have to be made so quickly, being a values-based leader and truly understanding what does that mean? What does it mean to be a values-based leader? What does it mean to lead in a values-based environment and being action-oriented against your values, but also leading a team, a brand new team, and moving them through a crisis like what we experienced in the last 2 years. And I can honestly say that, when I came into the program, I thought I knew what a values-based leader was, but coming out of the program, and even as we're concluding our last month, I feel like I was saying this to my cohort, I'm walking away being more unapologetic about who I am and what I stand for as a woman leader who's diverse and who's leading a group of individuals in a sector that matters for our country, but also recognizing for myself personally as a mom and a wife and a leader in my organization, what it means to say, I do value compassion. I understand why that's so critical and so important, especially in the times that we live in, and being able to say, this is the reason why it's important and critical to our business. And I couldn't say that before I entered the values-based certificate program. We laughed, actually, our cohort, when somebody said, we want compassion to be a value. I kind of rolled my eyes like, oh, great. This is gonna be one of those kumbaya classes, but it wasn't. It was certainly one of those things where when you're dissecting what it means to be a values-based leader, it really means understanding the responsibility we hold to ourselves personally, but also the responsibility that we hold in stewarding the 100 employees that work with and for us. And so it really helped me to critically understand the importance of knowing why values are so important for myself personally, but also what that means in aligning my organizational values with my personal values. And Charlene had mentioned, it actually helps, because when you know what your values are, when you can navigate that, it actually makes you feel more validated in your decision making. You don't burn out as easy because you know that you're not going outside of the parameters of who you are, and you're not compromising your own identity as a person. And so for me, yes, the day-to-day, I am constantly resource developing, writing grants, looking for ways to resource our organization. But I think the greatest thing and the greatest blessing also has been when you're working in this values-based cohort, you're working with individuals that have different experiences. We had people that were from Germany in the class. We had people that were from, a different viewpoint in cultural context. And then we had people that were, in their organization for 16 years, or people that were just walking into their executive position, or a new manager working and inheriting a team of 20 people that was spread across the country. And how do you learn to lead in a values-based way in such a different contextual world? Because our world changed. I just realized that since I signed up for this certificate, we have a very unique workforce that has changed and come out of this pandemic. And so for me, the greatest opportunity was understanding how to work in a very complex environment, but also managing and leading culture and in a values-based way in a virtual environment was so new to me. But recognizing how to do that organically with a cohort of 25 leaders from all over the country and all over the world, and sitting there and going, yeah, I agree with you, or no, I don't necessarily agree with you, and this is why, and challenging those dialogue and help those conversations, and still recognizing, as a values-based leader, this is what's important to me, and this is why it's important to me. I can also say that the literature that, I thought I knew a lot of the leadership literature, but the new literature that was introduced through Royal Roads was magnificent. Like a lot of leader experiences from Japan or the UK, and the context of world leadership and how it affects values-based leadership today in Canada. That was pretty magnificent for me to just learn new learning and new readings and apply that to some of the projects that we were working. As for my organization, how I've been able to apply it to my organization, we've doubled in size over the last 3 years, and we have built up the organization and recruited from within. But also as an organizational leader, when you're leading a values-based leader and your team is working virtually, it's really helped me to understand, okay, it's not just writing it out, it's not just saying it out loud, it's not just putting it in a marketing bulletin, but it's living those values every single time you get to make that connection and interaction. So it's really helped me to understand that the world has changed. We have, 5 different generational leaders that are occupying our workforce. And if you don't quite understand your values, and this program actually walked me through that, even finishing going through this finishing of this project is really defining what it means to truly lead in a complex world without having to compromise who you are as an organizational leader. And I honestly, the authenticity and the acceptance of that is just the most beautiful thing that I can say I walked away with from this program, because, for many times I always would have to apologize for being, what if I say this, or maybe I said this wrong, but now I feel a lot more confident and more succinct in being able to stand across and with my leadership team, my executive team, and my employees and our partners and donors in the community, and realize that, no, we're in this together. So if you take on this challenge, I'll tell you, it's lots of reading, so prepare yourself for that. But the reading is in your own time, and you can chunk things out and schedule things out. And the wonderful thing too is when you're going through the material, you have other professionals that are going through the same thing, and they can actually help support you through that process. So it's been a wonderful experience. Both the values-based leadership certificate, I never imagined the 10 times even effects of leading, entering into the Masters of Executive Leadership program. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's my gist of the program.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rowena. And of course, thank you, Charlene, Melina as well. There is time if people have any kind of questions. feel free to put them in the chat box. I'm trying to look at the chat at the same time, but I just, as you're writing in there, I'll take a look in a moment, unless Ariana can sort of call out any ones. But I just really want to say that every day I'm inspired by these three amazing women leaders, so thank you, Charlene, Melina, and Rowena, for all of you taking the time to come in. I hear clearly, and I know this of you, each of you, that you have full and active and busy lives and commitments, and to actually come in and share your experience. And I truly appreciate your enthusiasm for leading and learning, and hearing how this supports the path for developing thriving organizations. And I also hope that you on the call have also, gained some nuggets of insight around how to develop thriving organizations. Like, some of the things that just popped for me was the need for continuous learning, the engagement with others, having an understanding, on a head, heart, hand, and spirit level around leadership, and embracing self as leader, and the responsibility to self and to our people, and aligning personal and organizational values, and focusing on wellness and balance, and being fully who we are in terms of parents and colleagues and people. So looking at how we can integrate theory and practice and diverse readings. Anyways, that's me kind of giving a little bit of again, some of the gems that I've gleaned. I'm just wondering if there is questions that that anybody wants to speak to. So I'm kind of scrolling through.
There is one question
you.
in the chat there, Kathy. Sorry. I can read it out for you. It just says, I'm curious if Melina's transition to career from engineering to nonprofit was a result of values-based leadership.
I would say the answer is no, because I was still very much a values-based leader and purpose-driven leader in my engineering work. And in fact, our not-for-profit actually still has a lot of engineering in it. We're working on high performance green buildings and reducing carbon emissions and transportation and renewable energy and stuff. So there's still a very technical nature to the work, but I'll tell you what it did shift. Again, it's that piece to like core values. So for me, like making a difference in the world is definitely a core value. Like my whole main internal driver that gives me energy and brings me joy is looking at how we create a better world and better community. And I really value collaboration and innovation. And I feel the urgency of climate change. Like it is affecting all of us. And I want to find kind of practical ways to work together with others. And so what did help shift from my previous situation to now was I was in a culture that didn't really value innovation anymore. It did for many years, but changes of leadership and changing priorities and how they handled, I just felt like, the kind of sort of creativity and collaborative approach to innovation that was really important to me, that I felt was also really needed, it just wasn't valued as much. And so it was really great to be in this not-for-profit organization where we're called the Metro Vancouver Zero Emissions Innovation Center. Like we are here to basically work with others to look at how we bring innovations to help advance progress towards zero carbon future today, and looking broadly at health and well-being and all the design and construction stuff too. So anyway, just to say that the values-based thing, you can be a values-based leader no matter where you are. You could be running a car wash station, you could be leading big we happen to be executive leaders because we're in this executive program, but you could be a values-based leader no matter where you are in the organization. And I feel like there's a value to this program, again, on that personal journey of where you go and what you do. But it's just the culture piece. I feel like I'm in a much better culture fit because I'm more conscious and aware of the values that matter to me, and I'm more intentional about trying to align what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, who I'm doing it with, in a way that's more aligned with my values than maybe before. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mel. In terms of, just again, I also recognize that there's been some other comments around, again, the power of serving the organization, how to quickly connect and create results and draw from strengths in everybody's group. So Deb, I'm just sort of re-speaking to what that you had spoken to. But this is where coming together with others and like-minded people is really critical, and also recognizing that sometimes in our quest for wellness and getting results is that there's ways to approach things with one task, many benefits. So again, Melina, I appreciate how you even spoke to, that you utilize some of the course assignments for a board briefing on, and then put it as, the process. So that sometimes, as you were talking, if I was a student coming in, I'd be wondering, wow, how do you do it all? And I think that's where some of the process sometimes comes in as you get clear on your own values intentionally and explicitly. So that's sort of one question that I have, but I am going to just throw it to back to Charlene and Melina and Rowena in terms of any final words that you would like to offer before we kind of shift into giving a bit more of some of the specifics of then the nuts and bolts of both the values-based leadership graduate certificate and then also the MA in leadership with the executive leadership specialization, recognizing that this all comes under the executive leadership suite.
Well, I think so much was captured between the comments, that the questions, the comments, what Ro and Mel have shared as well. But I would just say, make sure you have fun with it. Make sure you integrate and make it as practical as you can. Build in that family support and be really explicit. That's the one thing I didn't say in my earlier spiel, is just really how this program has made me much more explicit in my communication and how I think, how I share, how I reach my goals. So there's some really exciting pieces, I think. I would encourage you, if you're already at this piece, the answer is yes. I'll leave it there. I think it's an awesome program. Good professional and personal development.
Maybe the only thing I would just really comment on that I appreciated is that the professors were often practitioners as well as academics. So many of the people that you're learning with and you're engaging with, like they're out in the business world or not-for-profit world or wherever, actually trying to themselves lead and do the kinds of things that you're all learning about. And so it was very much like practitioner focused. So it wasn't just about like the knowledge and doing the research so that you could know more. It was really about how do you take this knowledge and how does that translate in practice? And so I found like really tough questions that I was grappling with myself personally. Often I could actually, engage in some really great conversations with the professor or my classmates, and actually would generate so much insight that I was struggling to process or understand or turn into something that would maybe shift how I would do things in my work. So I really appreciated the sort of like practitioner orientation of the professors.
Yeah, my final thing is the flexibility and access of the materials. When you're a working professional and you have very limited time and you want to read at the end of the day in your office, or if you're traveling and you have to read on a work trip, the ease of access to the materials was just even just a great advantage in working and going through the program, and everything was just so accessible online, which I know it was changed and virtualized in many ways during the pandemic, but it made things so much more accessible and easy to follow through with.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rowena, Melina, and Charlene. I do see that another comment has come up. And at the end of it is a question from Kenneth Maxwell that says, are there a set of explicit universal values the course promotes? And if either any of you would like to talk to that, I'm happy to address. My quick answer to it is we offer a variety of different values frameworks so that you can sort of look deeper at different frameworks and contexts, as well as we encourage you to seek out your own and also to see what fits for you. So I'm going to stop there and just wonder if there's any other comments from my colleagues that would like to jump in.
I'll say one thing, that in my professional experience, I often was dealing with some very, very challenging organizational dynamics, power, politics, different kinds of conflicts, and underpinning those were some not super awesome values. And some of them may be very intentional, and some of them were unintentional that just led to like a lot of turbulence in different parts of the organization. So I was very, very attentive as part of my learning on this to actually go and explore those like darker sides of values and how do they manifest, and then what as a leader would I do to either, you know, be in and navigate those kinds of environments, and not be that, and what's the antidote, and what can I do, what's within my power and control as a leader and colleague to do that. Because you're 100% right. I mean, there's lots of values that have like a dark underside, and some are intentional and some are unintentional, but that's the whole point, is like to understand it and how to navigate it. So looking at like power and politics in decision making was part of what I personally focused on as part of my learning, because it was an area that I felt like I needed to build my competency in.
Thanks, Melina. And I mean, it's so critical in terms of with values is, again, recognizing our own, but also recognizing our teams and our changing teams. I see that, you know, Charlene has identified that cohort, and teams are also defined. We have different teams that shift, but then we also have a structure where we look at as our own cohort, which we call the XLKO, which is Executive Leadership Classroom as Organization, that we create a situation that we look at our classroom as an organization. So we have a class set of values and sort of moving before that. So I hope that answers your question in a fulsome way, Kenneth Maxwell, and then of course you'll get deeper while we're in there. So at this point, I recognize we got about 6 minutes before this particular webinar is over. Before we do that, I just do want to recognize another one of our colleagues, Matt. Matt is in here as well, so you might see a little bit of the fun and humor of playfulness in terms of between people within, and so there are some values that just resonate throughout the program, and I think creativity and fun and sort of a lightness is part of that too, as well as trust, and because really it's really important for us to look at how we can, you know, create environments for ourselves and our people in terms of affording trusted leadership. So there we go with that. So at this point then, again, another, you know, heartfelt thank you to Charlene and Melina and Rowena, as well as to all of you who are here and both today, but also who'll be watching this recording, because it really is critical to look at how we can move forward as values-based leaders. And as, you know, has been said before, is you know, we all have our values, whether we're conscious of them or not. And so part of how do we bring them forward more explicitly, more intentionally, to really be clear on how it's going to support us as we move forward. So to sort of then shift, for some people who have just come to sort of listen to part of values-based leadership and thriving, we're now going to shift into more specific program information. So if you feel that you want to jump off at this time, that's totally understandable. And if you want to stay, please feel free to stay. But I will give a quick sort of onward in terms of our program overview, as well as, you know, speaking a little bit more depth, but know that you can follow further. So one of the things is when we talk about an executive leadership specialization, we have the Masters of Arts, but we also, serves as the first term, is the values-based graduate certificate in leadership. So you'll see that in a minute. So it's held simultaneously. So people have often come in doing the values-based leadership certificate and decided to carry on to do the master's, and others haven't. And again, we work with the flow and ebb of that. And so to really center in that this program has been designed for mid to senior level organizational leaders who are looking for a deeper dive into how to leverage values to lead cultural change and sustain innovation in their organizations, and ultimately to be trusted organizational leaders. And so it really is open to those people who are, looking to locate themselves to take senior responsibility if they're not already across, multiple sectors. It's a multi-sectoral program, and really seeking to lead the way, focusing on an organization as a whole, beyond our teams and ourselves. And as Melina said, we have experienced executive leaders who are instructors in this program. It is required to teach in it, and it really is about delving into critical issues that face executive leaders. And so when you'll see on the website, you'll see that, we look at specific executive leadership experience. And so there is a requirement to have a minimum of 5 years of leadership experience, with at least 3 as a designated organizational leader with responsibilities to lead others to develop that common product or outcome with values. So again, if you're wondering about, okay, well, with values, we're looking at things like people with a service orientation, commitment to collaboration and shared visions, and a recognized maturity that supports organizational leadership, fostering diversity, inclusion, and workplace well-being. So you can find out more of this. If this isn't, what's great about this is you can connect with other people, like-minded individuals. And just, if this isn't the right program for you, we also in the School of Leadership Studies have other programs as well that are at their heart have values and values-based, yet this one digs deeper into how to sort of move that forward in terms of an organization. Then just sort of giving a quick overview of it, it is for the graduate certificate in values-based leadership, a 6-month program. Again, serves the first term of a 2-year program for a Master's of Arts. You can see that it has 2 6-day residencies. They happen at the end of May, maybe the first week of June annually. And you really are then able to take 9 units of electives to tailor your own program. And then it ends with a capstone, which is, currently Melina, Charlene, and Rowena are just in their final ascent in terms of engaging with an engaged leadership project that interweaves with developing your own and their own essential executive leadership practices. So just as a deeper dive into that, just to give you a bigger picture around that is, for the structure of it, we have, designed it around 4 key elements. There's a grounding and orientation piece. There's an electives piece. There's an organizational change leadership piece, and then leading change in practice piece. And those are the courses and coursework that relate to sort of those pieces. So again, with this program, values-based leadership really enables leaders to walk the talk on explicitly identified values. Authentic leaders are trusted leaders, and our current work environments, we know, are calling for trust in authenticity, inclusiveness, diversity, concerns for well-being, and addressing societal issues like truth and reconciliation, Black Lives Matters, the Me Too movement, climate change, AI, hybrid workplaces, so many things that are happening. So, a unique element of our program is that we do really support leaders to develop their character and capabilities by becoming aware of values collectively and seeking to live them intentionally and explicitly through our classroom as organization. So again, it's really, we're not here to create cookie cutter leaders. And it really is an embodied approach, that it's not just about filling you up with sort of, tools that if you just find the right key. It's about really integrating and claiming yourself as a leader and how you can support your organization in those pieces. And so then we'll move on to how to apply. And I'll turn it over to Ariana.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was so inspirational. Just hearing from all the panelists again. Thank you all so much for being here. I recognize that it is 1:02 p.m., so I will move at a quicker pace through this, but just know that this information is available under the program page on the Royal Roads website. So we will just quickly cover some of this here. If you're thinking about applying to either of these fantastic programs, there is an online application fee. It is $131.39 Canadian. And then we just ask for some supporting documents. So that's official transcripts from any school that you've attended in the past. A personal statement is really just your intention coming into the program and why you think it is a good fit and how you think you fit with the program as well. Structured resume, just so we can get an idea of who you are as an individual and your work experience, volunteer experience that you've done. Thank you. We also have enrollment on the line, kind of popping in some links in the chat. If you're interested, feel free to click on those, and 2 letters of reference as well. So from either your workplace or your previous academic work, if you have done any. We have some admissions requirements. Of course, Kathy was mentioning that this program is designed for mid to senior level leaders. So there is kind of that caveat. Standard admissions and flexible admissions are kind of the 2 paths that we offer at Royal Roads for admitting folks into the program. For standard admissions, we're looking for a 4-year or comparable undergrad degree from a recognized post-secondary institution with a minimum GPA of a B+, and 5 years of leadership experience. Again, there's more details on this on the website. We also offer flexible admissions, which is something fantastic about Royal Roads, I think. And for that, we require at least 10 years of professional experience with 5 years of leadership experience. And then there is some fine print on that, but feel free to have a look to any of those links or on the website. We have some key dates as well coming up. I can hardly believe it. The application deadline is March 17th, which is coming up. It does not feel like February to me right now. So the application deadline's coming up again, March 17th, 2023. If you've been thinking about it, now's the time. If you have any comments, concerns, of course, reach out to our enrollment advisors. But the start date for those is April 17th, 2023. For the MA leadership, executive leadership, and the GC and values-based leadership. Of course, we realize that going back to school is a large decision, so we have some services that are available to you. We have financial aid and award who are fantastic. They can be reached at ruralroads.ca/admission/financial aid awards, and they have things like loans, bursaries, scholarships, other awards, all kinds of things that you can explore on that section of our website. And then we also have enrollment services. They are fantastic. I am biased, but they are wonderful. They can be reached at learn.more@ruralroads.ca. There's also a couple phone numbers on the screen there for local and toll-free in North America. They really can help you narrow down your program options, answer questions, or connect you with students and alumni like these wonderful folks on the line today. You can have a chat with somebody who is in a similar program if you're thinking about it, and they can really kind of go through that with you. Thank you. In the chat, yes, highly recommend RRU in this program. Thank you, Melina. We appreciate that. And with that, that wraps us up here. So thank you so much. Again, feel free to contact us, stay in touch with the program. We will have some webinars coming up in the future for more fantastic content for you. And then check out the School of Leadership blog, which is sls.royalroads.ca/blog. Kathy, do you have any final words to wrap us up today?
Other than just wishing you all a great day of leadership and look forward when our paths do cross.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you to you, Kathy, and thank you to everybody on the line and on the recording. We will see you in a webinar in the future, and have a great day. Take good care.